Great to have Sourdough Slim and the Saddle Pals back. Great country western, cowboy western music, great comedy. And please welcome back to the Palms, Sourdough Slim and the Saddle Pals.
A yodeling cowboy, a yodel out on the prairie. A yodel a song a driving noise on.
I've been performing at the Palms since the early 80s. Yeah, since the early 80s with the 8th Avenue String Band, and then with my pals Cactus Bob and the Prairie Flower. I think our first show was 1990, and so we've been here the whole time. I think the Palms started back in the 70s, but we have been absolutely honored to be a part of it, haven't we? It's been absolutely fabulous. There hasn't been a bad show. The Palms is always magic.
Riding on the range, darn tough is good. Darn tough. And when the day is done, we sure all tired. Before I hit the hay in another dusty day.
Yeah, we've been coming here for, we believe, about 18 years, and I don't know how many, several dozen times that we've been here, but we are extremely saddened that the Palms is closing. There ought to be somebody that could take over and either build another Palms or move this into another location, but we are very saddened that the place is closing. There's never, any place that we've ever been has never been a place quite like it. The atmosphere, the closeness of the entertainers to the audience, and just the quality of music has just been outstanding. There's no place that we would rather see anybody, I don't believe.
I have to agree. We drive from Stockton. We love it here. It's been the background music to our lives for the last 19 years, 18, 19 years. Steve Seskin, one of our favorite performers here.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Palms Playhouse. We also say very much welcome to the Teens Camping Tour of the West from North Carolina. How are you guys? You guys are in Davis, California, and in case you don't know, it's Friday. That must be in Davis. I know. An opportunity to hear one of the great songwriters in the country, and he definitely is. As all of you know who've heard a lot of his songs on the radio, just so many, and it's great to have him here. He's probably played here more than any other person in the 25-year history of the Palms too, and so it's just always a thrill. So please welcome here to the Palms Playhouse, Steve Seskin.
I only speak the truth.
insisted that I sleep in the yard. I laughed pretty hard for a little while. But you weren't fooling now, I'm here on the lawn. And though admitting I'm wrong is not my style. It's a jungle out here, there's a whole lot of wildlife. They're creeping and crawling, the mercury's falling, it's gonna be a long night. I won't make it till dawn, and though I might be right where I belong, have mercy, my dear, it's a jungle out here.
The Palms is one of my favorite places to play and has been for over 20 years. And I know a lot of musicians feel the same as I do. The casual nature of it, the intimate nature of it, the fact that the audience is like right there at your feet. There's really no other place like it. Working with Dave Fleming and Linda McDonough before that, it's just been a pleasure. I really treasure this place. So I'm gonna miss it. I wish there was a way it could stay just right here, just like it is. Davis has plenty of houses, but only one Palms. And the notion that I'm gonna drive up here a year or two from now and maybe see just more houses, just like on the left or the right of this place right now, doesn't sit too well with me, but there's not much I can do about it. They didn't ask me. If they had, I'd say, hey, leave it just like it is.
Man's best friend. It's a jungle out here. There's a whole lot of wildlife. They're creeping, they're crawling. Mercury's falling, gonna be a long night. I won't make it till dawn. Okay, I'm right where I belong. Have mercy, my dear. It's a jungle out here. It's a jungle out here. It's a jungle out here.
The first or the only group of kids I had in the Davis Art Center were just phenomenal. We had so much fun together that we decided we should be putting on plays. And at Sacramento State, they had a book called Shakespeare for Children. So I took the Shakespeare plays and adapted them to my group of kids at the Art Center, and then I sprinkled in a few of my buddies from downtown Davis. And we created what was called Shakespeare in the Park, where they have a slide and they had steps going down underneath this bridge. It was a perfect Shakespearean setting. We had such a good time doing it, both the adults and the kids, that we continued to look for plays and do things together. Well, my best friend in Davis at this time was a woman named Linda Pugh, and she lived out in Willowbank. And to get to Willowbank, you had to drive down what was then Road 103. And we were driving down Road 103 one day, and there was a for sale sign on this farm, this 2-acre farm. The rest is history. Got a grant from the city.
It was the first year that the students had a vote. The 18-year-old vote, that was the first year of it, was in '72. And so in the process, we had the election, and because of that, we had a complete change of the city council, and so we were a much younger city council in those days. And first thing we thought we'd like to do is to have some cultural arts activities. Just to give it a little start, we decided to put $2,000 aside each year, and people could apply for the use of the money. One of the people who applied was Linda McDonough, and her idea was that she would like to extend the program that she had for children acting in the park to a facility like the building that the Palms was in. And so she applied for the grant, got all 2,000 of it, and with a lot of help from her friends, she got the place built and got it operating. So it was all her idea.
And opened something like 6 months later, I think, with a melodrama called No, No, a Million Times No.
I got involved with the Palms because of Shakespeare. And it was summer Shakespeare stuff that happened both in the city parks and at the Palms Playhouse. And it really was a barn in those days. There wasn't the curtain that was painted and had the lovely advertising stuff on it, didn't exist at that point. So it was really just an open barn, and it was somewhere that we performed inside in a specific location, the same production we took out into the parks, and it developed out of the Davis Art Center. So I think that Linda McDonough and Linda Pugh figured out how to have a little theater. They thought they were putting together shows anyway. So here's where we have a house, here's where we have a barn, we'll put a stage in here, we'll make a theater of it, we've put these productions on, here's where we can rehearse, we'll take them out to the parks, and then we'll come back and do a run of the shows here.
I first met Linda, well, both the Lindas actually, in the fall of '75 when I went for my first audition. And they were very welcoming, just super nice. And my next door neighbor actually went with me, and because she was interested as well, and she had done some acting, so we both went and we both got parts in the very first play that I did with them, which was called The Death and Life of Sneaky Fitch. They used to do a Shakespeare in the summer, and before it there would often be an outdoor festival. People would play musical instruments, and we'd all stand around and greet people, sort of like a mini Ren Fair.
So we'd have games and competitions for kids and adults to do things, and the actors had to participate in that as well as being in the plays they were doing. So that's how I got involved.
I got involved at the Palms. I saw him in the park doing Shakespeare in the park, and I thought, wow, that looks like a lot of fun. And somehow, I don't exactly remember how, I started making wooden swords for the Shakespeare, because they'd break them all the time, you know, because the actors would get too involved in their little roles and wind up with real sword fights.
I'm trying to think of how we came up with the name Bad Actors, but it just seemed really appropriate since nobody had any true theater training other than me. They were just incredibly extroverted and fun-loving.
And when you take the experience seriously, but you don't take yourself seriously, that was kind of the theme. Where, you know, they were doing some Shakespeare, and people were learning some major lines out there. And so, but calling yourself the bad actors, you kind of inoculate yourself, oh, you know, this is a pretentious theater. In no way was it pretentious. It was people having a good time, and you know, folks had a lot of fun, and kind of the audience was in on the joke too.
You know, I just started looking for plays to do. And our big break came when a friend of ours was 7 feet tall, and the idea came that we really should find a play about Frankenstein, because we had such a good person to play that part. So I went to the Davis Library and researched Frankenstein plays and came up with a play called I'm Sorry the Bridge is Out, You'll Have to Spend the Night, which was written by Bobby Boris Pickett of the Monster Mash fame. So I wrote Bobby Boris Pickett and asked if we could put on his play. And he said, sure. It was just a smash hit. It was so much fun. It was a musical about, you know, one dark night, two lovers. It was kind of like Rocky Horror Picture Show, before Rocky Horror Picture Show. And Bobby Boris Pickett came up.
We did I'm Sorry the Bridge is Out, You'll Have to Spend the Night. And that was really fun. That was a real authentic published play, but the music was Bobby Pickett and Sheldon Allman, and they both lived in Southern Cal and came up while we were getting ready to do the show, and Bobby Pickett stayed here for quite a while, and I know Sheldon came up for it, and it was really one of the most fun plays that we ever did there, or that I ever did, actually.
The show, I'm Sorry the Bridge is Out, You'll Have to Spend the Night, which I reviewed, I wasn't in, but I remember there was a mummy character in there, you know, wrapped up with gauze bandages. And apparently during one of the shows, the person playing that character stepped out to have a cigarette. And some of the ashes of the cigarette fell into the wrappings of the mummy. And so during the show, smoke started coming out, and the mummy, and the people were going, great acting. No, he was on fire. So, I mean, that's live theater at its best, and people would play it off.
I was first introduced to the Palms by a friend of mine by the name of Alan Jones, who knew the two Lindas, Linda McDonough and Linda Pugh.
Well, Linda Pugh was basically my right-hand person. We collaborated a lot, we talked a lot. She took notes, usually when we were, you know, directing. She did props, she did, you know, we did everything kind of together in terms of walking around town, putting up posters, building sets or painting sets. We really didn't build sets, but she was just really, you know, we were two peas in a pod. We just really complemented each other. She was a school teacher, so she was far more organized than I was. She was crafty, you know, she knew, meaning not crafty mentally, just knew how to mix up a good paper mache. It was just fun.
And Linda McDonough was basically in charge, and she was the artistic director and director of the Playhouse. And Linda was her friend, and you know, supported her in putting the theater together. And the first show I saw was, I think it was Twelfth Night. I was intrigued with it, and later on, I was an actor in high school, and I was in high school at the time, and in a small town called Dixon, just about 8 miles away from Davis. The Palms was located in South Davis, and they had auditions for a show called Robin Hood, the rock version. And so I was intrigued. I really wanted to be a part of this. I loved doing musicals and I loved acting. I wasn't a very good dancer, but I was very dramatic, over-dramatic, overacting a lot. And so I auditioned, and I thought for sure I had every right to Robin Hood, and was astonished when I was given Prince John. And then I found out who got Robin Hood, and it was David Hance, who was absolutely incredible, and of course became my lifelong friend. It was great. It was Bill Maloney wrote the show. He basically took an old Robin Hood storybook and just started writing, you know, a script for it, and then taking oldies songs and changing them to craft the lyrics towards the Robin Hood story.
I've just got one word to say to that. And what might that be, my lord? Mary, 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 won't you come along with me? Mary, Mary, oh, Mary, 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 won't you come along with me? Mary, Mary, oh, Mary, Mary, well, tell me what it takes and we can live so happily. Mary, Mary, oh, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me what you got to lose. Tell me, tell me, oh, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me what you got to lose. Tell me, oh, tell me, tell me. There's lots of women round here who like to be inside of your shoes. Women, women, oh.
And so it was a lot of fun. It was kind of like the excitement of Second City feeding into Saturday Night Live. At least that's the way we thought of it. You know, we thought we were so cool. And we just had a lot of fun.
I helped work on the plumbing there. I worked on the building when something would break. I was like a general maintenance man. I tended bar there. I acted in plays. I wrote plays. I directed the music for almost all of the musicals they did. There were some that I didn't, but most of them I did. And so I remember it all very fondly.
They did Sub-Zero, written by Rick Gush. who also wrote Tarzan. And Linda was putting out all these shows and that these guys were writing and putting together. And David and I went on to write a show called Howard the Duck.
I had always done a lot of sewing, so sometimes if they were costumes that had been around a long time, we would remake them, or at least, you know, glam them up a bit, or do something. But we also used to go literally to the rag pickers to pick through the things that they were sending off to be made into rag paper. And we would pick through and find some fabrics that we could then use, curtains and all kinds of stuff. Was very, it really pushed you, because you didn't have 25 yards of silk. You had 3 yards of something, and you weren't even always sure what it was.
I remember as a kid, one of the very first shows that I used to watch on our brand new black and white TV set was the Howdy Doody Show. Never missed it, loved Buffalo Bob and the Indian Princess, Princess Summer, Fall, Winter, Spring. And so when I got wind that the Davis Bad Actors were actually going to do a spoof on the Howdy Doody Show, I just said, okay, I have to audition for that. And I did, and I got cast as Princess Summer, Fall, Winter, Spring. So it was a great opportunity for me to go back and actually relive my childhood and make it come alive. Being in a show at the Palms is always a memorable experience, I think, both for the cast and for the audience. When we were doing the Howdy Doody Show, Linda decided that at the end of every show she was going to have me give out balloons. So I would stand outside of the theater with holding 100 balloons, and as people came out, I would hand them a balloon before they left the show. So I don't think I've ever seen that done at any other theater. So Linda was very unique, and the shows at the Palms were just very unique shows.
The response was always very, very positive being at the Palms. One of the places I liked doing was Broadway. We did Broadway. That was fun. I got to sing a little bit. I also did some of the set design for Linda when she asked. And one of the sets that I enjoyed a lot was Alice in Wonderland.
I could blow smoke rings like nobody's business. I could blow a smoke ring through a smoke ring, through a smoke ring. And we're sitting on the park bench in front and we're talking about Alice in Wonderland. And I said, Linda, I said, who are you going to get for the caterpillar? She goes, you know, I don't know. And I, blowing smoke ring, like that. She goes, you want to be the caterpillar, don't you? You're perfect. Look at those smoke rings. I said, oh, you want me to be the caterpillar? I'd love to be the caterpillar. Yeah, that'd be great. So I got the part as the caterpillar. And I think Linda Pugh and Charlotte made the costume, and it was crazy. I mean, it was really crazy. It was a mushroom dress that I got in, and my legs were pushed together. I could hardly walk, and then this mushroom that the caterpillar was sitting on, and the rest of my body was the caterpillar.
Alice in Wonderland was a show that was produced at the Palms by the Bad Actors. It wasn't a musical, but it was a little bit of an adult version of Alice, and the costumes were spectacular. It was not a children's company at all. It was all adult actors, and the costuming and settings were really very colorful and vivid. It was a lot of fun to do that sort of thing. I actually miss it because the intimacy was such that the interaction with the audience was something that was really special.
Another, I don't remember the name of this play, but it had something to do with Romans, because we were, Linda could talk to anybody into doing anything pretty much. She was just charming that way. And she had talked this guy who had horses into bringing his horses and his chariot out, and they did the pre-part of the play out in the field. And so he had his horses girl, and I was the girl, and I was in the back of the chariot. Well, by the third day, these horses had had enough, and they said, hey, we're leaving. After we pick up this girl, we're out of here. So that was pretty interesting.
It was also interesting how Linda McDonough and Linda Pugh were so seemingly willing to open their home to all of us. The Lindas did not seem to have a pure vision for the Palms that said, it must be this and only this. It felt more like, yeah, here's some things we want to do. If you have other ideas, bring them on. Let's see if we can put them together. And that is a very encouraging way of approaching a performing space.
Playing Mortimer Brewster in Arsenic and Old Lace, where Linda Pugh, Linda McDonough played the dotty old ladies that actually poisoned the people and put them in the basement, buried them. So it was kind of a life imitating art. You never quite knew what was going to happen at a bad actor's show. And remember one of the shows where there was actually a live horse, a horseback rider went right through the audience in one door and out the other door out into the pasture in the back. You know, something that wasn't a traditional theater type of entrance. And those kind of things happen on a regular basis out of the Palms. You never quite knew what would happen next.
I guess there's a point to be made just at how many things the Palms was really used for, given that it had a wedding. Dick Holdstock got married there.
We had a wedding there that was, the trouble was they started serving the champagne before the wedding itself actually started. So it was quite an experience.
Former Mayor Sandy Motley turned 60. And she decided to have her birthday party at the Palms Playhouse. And I remember the invitations had a picture of Sandy in front of the old rusted tractor that used to sit in the parking lot that you would pass by on your way to the front door. And you know, she wore overalls and had a birthday party out there. So you know, it did a lot of things, not just music or theater. There were a lot of other activities that took place in the Palm, and so it was truly a community resource.
It had a couple of memorial services. It had we had children's participatory theater. It was really a playhouse where people came to participate, not just watch, but really become a part of something. So that made it really special.
But it was just a short period of time, maybe 10, 12 years, when the bad actors put on shows, and we sort of thought it would go on forever, but it had a lifespan.
There used to be a Hibbert Lumber Company on the corner of 5th and something downtown, and he had a big barn in the back, and I coveted that barn. And I would go in and say to him all the time, and Mr. Hibbert was a wonderful man. He was the first man to get his name on the ad curtain and give me $100. So the barn, he had a storage barn for the wood in back. And I got a call one day, he had died, and he had put in his will that that the Palms should have that wood. And we went and got it, and that is what went up on all the side walls. And I think that is what really attributed to the acoustics. And I was so touched by his thoughtfulness of mentioning us in his will so that we had that wood. And thank goodness now I still remember how generous people really can be. It just really shaped my optimism for the human race, owning that theater, because I had so much love was given. And I think those vibes just carry over to the performers that come in. They feel it, they get it, they give it. And it's a back and forth energy that was really fun.
My involvement with the Palms began in summer of 1981 when they evolved from a theater-only or almost all theater troupe to exploring music as a performance venue. Previous to that, it had been all theater. The Davis Pickers and Singers would do an occasional musical act. We had people like Dick Shirey, Bill Maloney, Bodie Wagner, Dick Holdstock. They would all participate in the musical theater aspect of the theater group. The Davis Pickers and Singers decided to help Linda, was the impetus for Linda McDonough to start the folk festival. And that very first folk festival was held out in the pasture behind the barn that was the Palms in July of 1981. Acts that were at that festival, and it was a one-time festival. It was supposed to be annual, but it turned out to be too difficult to do. But the Hawks and Eagles, Jimmy Bosdorf, Kate Wolf was there, the Arkansas Sheiks, Bodie Wagner, the Good Old Persons, a lot of fun acts. Though that became what the Palms ultimately was, a folk, jazz, rock, blues venue that did a little of everything and actually did it quite well.
I had been to several of the house concerts of the Davis Folk Society and got to know Dick Holstock and Bill Wagman and Lynn Turner. And Dick Holstock came to me and said, you know, we're doing so well with our house concerts. How about doing a couple of our acts out at the Palms? So that's how that started, and the first one we did was Utah Phillips, who Bodie Wagner opened for him, and it was just such a magical night. I went, wow, this is great.
I got involved in the mid-'70s with a group of people here in Davis who would get together once or twice a month and sit around and play music, sing songs, and generally have a good time doing that. And one of the people who was involved in that was Dick Holstock, who was a longtime folkie and knew a lot of folk musicians and knew about house concerts. A lot of traveling musicians came through, and at one point booked Utah Phillips and started getting reservations for the Utah Phillips concerts, and there were more people who were interested in coming than there were room for in the house where we were scheduled to do it.
One of the shows we were going to put on was a show that involved a person by the name of Bodie Wagner and a guy that I'd heard about but didn't know much about, and his name was Utah Phillips, the golden voice of the Great Southwest. So we decided to put him on in the house concert, but once we had listed it, it was sold out in a few minutes practically. So we felt bad that we weren't going to be able to get enough, you know, a lot of people were not going to get a chance to see them. So realizing that the Palms was going on, we said, well, I wonder if they're doing anything that night. Maybe we could even talk them into letting us put a concert there.
And so Dick got in touch with Linda McDonough. He knew she was doing the plays out there and asked her if she would be willing to host music out there. And she said yes. And so we made arrangements to have Utah play out there.
So they said, okay, so how do you charge for that? Well, we pay the money to the performer, and that Linda could sell the beer, because she had a beer license in that place. So she could sell the beer and make money on that. And so everybody was happy.
I mean, I personally loved folk music. The whole atmosphere of the Palms lent itself to folk music. And of course, the fact that the seats were filled was really perfect.
After Utah played there, it worked out so well that we sort of started trying to move the house concerts out to the Palms. Dick probably did a large percentage of the booking because through his music connections, he knew a lot of people and knew a lot of people who were traveling through. If somebody was coming through and we wanted to do a concert out there, we would ask Linda, and Linda was pleased by the first experience and the few subsequent experiences that she allowed us to continue doing that, and that went on for 3 or 4 years. And Linda didn't really have the experience booking the musicians, and so she just sort of relied on us. And then somehow or other, and I don't know how that happened, the word spread, And she started getting requests from other traveling musicians, bigger known people who were not necessarily part of the folk scene, who were contacting the Palms and saying, I've heard good things about it, how can I get a gig here? And I believe Mose Allison was the first one that she actually booked there. And then over the next 2 or 3 years, she started doing all of the booking and took it over from us, and ultimately ended up doing all the booking on her own.
Eventually what happened was the singing part and the music part, aside from the theater, there was this emptiness of the American Music Hall over in San Francisco, and then shows that were going on in Reno for these musical acts, for these music acts. And they found out about the Palms, and then they started booking on their way from either the city to Nevada or from Nevada to the city or wherever they were going. They'd hit the Palms and play in a very intimate, wonderful environment. And that's what led ultimately to the Palms becoming what it is today.
I became aware of the Palms when my wife Janet and I moved to Davis for me to attend law school and for us to start raising our family. And we started hearing from friends from time to time saying, would you like to go to the Palms? Would you like to go to the Palms? And finally we took them up on an offer, and it was the McGarrigle sisters that were the first time that we got to the Palms, and had no idea what we were walking into. And suddenly you're in a barn at the outskirts of town, and you're hearing some of the most fantastic, relaxed music you could ever imagine.
I moved to Sacramento in 1978, so the Palms has been a part of my life ever since I came to Northern California. I've seen some really outstanding performances there, spent some of the best evenings of my life listening to music at the Palms in Davis. I'm having a hard time really coming to grips with the Palms leaving the old barn. I don't know what is so special about that place, but something is definitely special about the old barn.
Palms is one of my favorite venues. I moved up to Sacramento in about 1984 or 85, so it had already been going, and I'd lived down in Stockton, and it was a place to come up and see some acts that came through that otherwise you'd have to drive down to the Bay Area and see. Everything from folk and blues to world music to, you know, some rock stuff.
As soon as I heard about the Palms, I knew I had to go because someone told me that it was a venue where you felt basically like you're in someone's living room. And having gone to a lot of concerts in San Francisco where you're far away from the stage or basically drowned out by the crowd itself, that kind of held an allure. So I knew I wanted to do an article for the Chronicle on the Palms.
I started going to the Palms in the late 1980s, and a friend took me there, and we drove up, and I thought, what is this place? Because it's a little ramshackle, it's a little barely held together, and it turned out to be one of the most charming places I've ever been for music or any other sort of live performance. Seems to always be that the audience and the performers become one because you're in such a small space. It's so cozy. Everybody's really squeezed up shoulder to shoulder. Front row, you put your feet up on the stage and you can just almost reach out and just strum the guitar.
The stage was about this high, so it was really intimate. The chairs were right up close to it.
And it was as close as you and I are now. It was as close as you could be within distance. You could always, wherever you were sitting, you could just reach out and touch the performer.
Basically a great place to catch music.
Besides being the best place to see these national touring Americana acts, the Palms was very supportive of the local music scene, helping local bands become regional bands and grow their following. From personal experience, it helped us a lot. It helped Mumbo Gumbo, the Spidels. We started playing the Palms in 1985 as the Spidels, changed our name at the Palms in April of 1990 to Mumbo Gumbo. That was our first Mumbo Gumbo show. And then we continued playing the Palms every picnic day after that.
There were certain concerts like Mumbo Gumbo where there were no seats because they were just dance concerts. You know, nobody wanted to sit in their seat and listen to this band. You couldn't. You had to get up and dance.
I'm going to tell you about what it was like to be in that tiny little room with the musicians right up next to you and this music just filling the space. It was so intimate and so inspiring, and it actually was quite transcendent to have. I felt like I was inside a speaker when I was at the Palms. I could hear every note, and it was just such a blessing to have all these amazing performers. Jesse Colin Young, Elvin Bishop, Leon Redbone, Leo Kottke, John Fahey, Stephen Stills. Stephen Stills played at the Palms. It was amazing. Norton Buffalo.
For the last, gosh, maybe 10 years as I've played this place here, the Palms in Davis, when I've done my performance at some point or another in the show, I stop and pause and question the audience to see if there's anybody in the crowd that knows or has themselves enough money to buy all the property surrounding here so that we don't have to lose this great place. And as it turned out, it wasn't the property around it that went, but the property itself that went. And the reason I didn't want it to go away is because in these walls have been some of the best shows I've ever done in my life.
Anyway, once again, thanks for coming, and would you please welcome here to the Palms Playhouse, great songwriter, singer, Shannon Morrison.
So I was just finishing recording the new CD, and I was driving on my way to the studio with the producer. He'd come and pick me up in the morning, and we'd talk about stuff driving to the studio. And I had told him that I was dreaming about this song before I woke up, and I said, "Did you ever hear this song? This is a song that my dad wrote recently. It's on a record called The Healing Game, which is just a few years old." And I said, "Have you ever heard this song called Sometimes We Cry?" Because to me, when I heard it, it's one of those instant classics, which means that you can be anyone, anywhere in the world, at any time in your life, and this song will still mean something. It's called Sometimes We Cry. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we give, sometimes we won't. Sometimes we're strong, sometimes we're wrong. Sometimes we cry. Sometimes it's bad when the going gets tough. When we look in the mirror and we wanna give up.
We're here at the Palms tonight, and it's bittersweet because this is going to be our last show here. And we actually thought that the last show we did was the last we were doing here, so we got really excited that we were coming back before it closed. But I just want to say that it's been a very special place to play. These are the types of places that we want to play. We like the Palms because it's actually, this kind of place is where music actually should be taking place. And I often wish I lived closer to the Palms, because whenever I look at his calendar, I'm like, oh, there's 10 different artists I want to see. So it's been a favorite of mine, and so many musicians that I know that play here, we're all very upset that it's going away.
Like Johnny Ray, sometimes we live, sometimes we die, sometimes we cry.
Tell you one thing, I never wore a tie at the Palms in all the years. So you want to know about the first time I played the Palms? Was with Country Joe and McDonald. We were doing a show called Acoustic Music for the Mind and Body, which was just the two of us, which was the original Country Joe and the Fish. We started as a duo and, so to speak, ended as a duo. And we pulled into the Palms, which is, at that time, was in the middle of nowhere. And boy, that was about the coolest place I ever played. And we did 2 shows. What a marvelous room. And I played it, I think, once or twice more with Joe in that period in the late 80s and early 90s. And at that point in time, my wife and I even began discussing moving to Davis, because we fell in love with the town. And I hadn't really played much in Davis since my old days of playing Freeborn Hall in the 60s, and later playing Cassidy's.
I think working at KZAP and KSFM, it was hard not to know about the Palms. I mean, it's right in between the 2 stations. It's 15 minutes from Sacramento, and you'd hear about these shows that would go on out there. So eventually you got to drive out there and check it out, see what all the talk is about. First time I ventured out to the Palms, and I regret that I didn't go to more shows. I'm sure I had the same reaction a lot of people did when you pull up into this dirt parking lot and you're wondering what it is you're in for, because this did not look like any kind of theater or club I'd ever been to. We were there to see John Hyatt. You sit down in these mismatched wooden chairs, and there's no way the band's going to be very far from you because the place was so small, so I got pretty excited about realizing I was going to be 12 feet away from John Hyatt. We weren't disappointed.
The Palms was the most wonderful place. I mean, the greatest variety of performers. There's always a room that sparked the performer into doing a great performance, very responsive audiences. And it just became known for that because it was consistently that. They always great response, and I think they passed the word among the performers. Oh, you got to play that place, you know. So the first time they booked Etta James, she pulls up to the venue in her van. You know, she's in the passenger seat and she's got a driver, and she takes one look at it. She goes, "I don't play Barnes." And he goes, "Well, you know, this is what it is." He goes, "Well, you know, I'm not going to play here. I don't play Barnes." And so Linda, you know, the original founder and owner, comes out and starts pleading with, "Oh, we have great audiences. You'll have a great time. I promise you." It's really good. I don't play Barnes. So finally, she had to pay Etta the back end of the money that they normally get after performance. She had to pay her in front, in cash, in the car. She counted the money. She came in and played. At the end of that performance, she told Linda, "I'll play here anytime." And that's what the Palms was like.
Every now and then there's a club that treats you like, not only like you're a human, but you're a family member. And the Palms is always a club that I look forward to playing, and my friends of mine look forward to playing, because it was always like coming home. And I hate to see it leave.
Yeah, I'm out around
all the Indians and they shot old the grizzly bear. Yeah, out in California, man, they shot old the grizzly bear. She's just standing by the window, letting down her long.
It's always seemed to me we always want to keep as many venues of expression, as many modes of expression open as we possibly can, because we don't know where the next great artist is going to come from. We don't know what the next great performer is going to be doing. For us to limit that in some fashion because we've been told that roots music is only, or country music is only, or the blues are only, is to take all of the paint from the palette. In my book, Working Man Blues, I tried to show how cultural continuity was really not a matter of homogeneity, but of heterogeneity. That there were all kinds of musics that combined to become what we called roots or country music. It wasn't one kind. It wasn't the Nashville sound. It wasn't rockabilly. It wasn't the Bakersfield sound. It was a variety of expressions from a variety of experiences. And that was really the core of it. No one was being forced into a mold of expression. No one was only writing chamber music. And when a place that allows the variety of expression that is more accurate in its reflection of the human condition is done away with, then it's entirely possible that younger performers in particular will feel the only modes of expression open to them are those which are commercially approved. And that's nonsense. Every artist of any quality reinvents the form. Any artist of any quality gives us a whole new kind of music because their particular expression is not going to be the same as anyone else's. And we have to leave the possibility of that kind of expression open to every young artist in order to find out who we are and in order to be remembered.
The first time I played there must have been with a local group called Livingston and Company. Livingston and Company was a high school teacher, Dick Livingston. He's a great figure in Davis, not only for his teaching, which had a great effect on many people, personal effect, but he was also really active politically and made a big difference, and he's still around, I believe. So Dick Livingston played piano. He played stride piano and jazz piano and maybe a little boogie. And his son Rich played drums. Keith Carey, the great bass player and another great figure in the local music scene, played bass. And my friend, one of my oldest friends, Chris Webster, sang, and I played sax. And but the time we played the Palms, for some reason we got the gig opening for the Limelighters, I believe, an old folk group, you know. And I eventually started playing with Bill Scholler's blues band. Later on I joined a band started by Bill Fairfield, a rockin' band called Chase 88. Chase 88 sort of turned into the Spidells. You know, eventually I left town. So it was a big thrill to come back to the Palms with a national act. And I was working with the Duke Robillard Band. I had been already traveling with Luther Guitar Jr. Johnson and Mac Guitar Murphy, eventually Solomon Burke, and a lot of blues and soul acts. But we were backing up John Hammond, who's kind of a legendary blues performer, and he would open the show doing his acoustic blues, which was something he was famous for. Then we would do our set, and then we would play together. And we took that all over Europe, New Zealand, Australia, Turkey, all over the States. But probably to come back to the Palms and play my hometown with that was really a great feeling for me.
I had an early flight to catch, and I was in line. It was Southwest Airlines. You know how you stand in line if you have an A ticket. And I was standing in line, I was laying down in line with my head on, my kind of carry-on, and I fell asleep and eventually woke up, and I looked up and there was a couple of, hippie-looking guys with long hair behind me and guitars. And once I kind of got up and I was more cognizant of what was going on, I asked him, I said, "So you guys a band?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, we're Roy Rogers and the Delta Rhythm Kings." And I said, "Roy Rogers and the Delta Rhythm Kings?" I said, "You guys played at the Palms." And he goes, "The Palms, yeah." He says, "That's the only place, absolutely the only place where we'd be playing music and a dog would walk across the stage, or a goat." I said, "Yeah, that's the Palms."
definitely been one of our favorite performers since I think '85 is when he first started playing here. It's about 17 years, and I've always enjoyed him very, very much. Would you please welcome here back to the Palms Playhouse, John Stewart.
I was up to be in a movie back in the 70s, a movie called Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. James Coburn played Pat Garrett, and went and saw the producer. He thought I'd be really good for this one role, and went back and read for a lot of people looking at me with their expressionless faces. And Glenn Carrolley, who was in these, he said, well, you got the part. We're going to Mexico in 10 days. I think it was the night before, or maybe 2 days before, he called and said, I've got bad news, Dylan's gonna play your part. I said, well, that's all right. It wasn't all right, but it's Dylan. Christopherson was playing Billy the Kid, and I saw him a few months later, and I said, well, how was it? He said, oh, Pick and Paul never came out of his trailer for 4 days. And all I had to do was sit around and pick with Dylan. Gee, that's a shame, Chris. I'm so glad I wasn't alone. I was talking to a man about a movie show, take me to Durango. I could play that part just fine, you know. Take me down to Mexico, down, down, down. Won't you take me to Durango? Take me down, down, down. Oh, take me down to Mexico. Sing that with me. Oh, down, down, down. Take me to Durango. Take me down, down, down. Oh, take me down to Mexico. Yeah, I never saw old Peckinpah. I guess he forgot to call me. I can understand using Rita's man to be the best Billy Kid of them all. And you take him down, down, down. You take me to Durango. Take me down, down, down. Oh, take me down to Mexico. Let's really hear. Oh, down, down, down. So take me to Durango. It is peculiar that I write so many American songs and get to play at the Palms here, because this is just a very Wyeth Rockwell setting that I'm going to miss very much, and the acoustics and the hometown kind of place where people are relaxed to come. We're relaxed to play here. Down, down, down. Take me to Durango. Take me down, down, down. Take me down to Mexico. Oh, down, 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 down. Won't you take me to Durango? Take me down, down, down. Oh, take me down to Mexico.
There aren't too many places that could boast of the national touring acts that played that little 150-seat venue. You know, Richard Thompson, of course, Steve Stills. When are you going to see Steve Stills doing a venue like the Palms? You know, Roger McGuinn, the Coasters, Mary Wells, the Queen of Motown. It's great to go out to, you know, drive 5 minutes out in the country and hear somebody doing their national hits, national top 5 records.
One of my favorite memories of the shows, I used to go to, if they had an early and late show, I generally go to early and late show, and Dale McCurry was there one night. And in between shows, Joe Craven was kind of bouncing around there and said, hey Johnny, you're staying for the late show. And I go, absolutely, I'm staying for the late show. But he knew, I didn't, but David Grisman was going to show up, and sure enough, he came out on stage, and they had Laurie Lewis come out on stage, and that's really what the magic about the Palms is. A lot of the artists would come, they would sit in with all the other artists, or they just say, hey, Laurie Lewis is here, hey, come on up here and play.
It seemed to be that when you came to the Palms, there was a sense of community. Whether you came there from Grass Valley or Vacaville or Sacramento or farther away, or like me, you walked over 3.5 blocks to see the show. And people just were there for the music, and I think the barn and the ambience of the place just brought out the best in people, and you'd find people just chatting to you and talking to you as if they had known you all your life.
Please welcome Golden Bough.
Thank you so much for coming out and supporting this fantastic, fantastic spot. And even though it's moving, we encourage you to continue to support the wonderful concept of the Palms, because even though it won't be funky and cobwebby, it'll still be funky and cobwebby in our hearts. Thanks again for coming. Come all ye fisher lassies, it's come a walk with me, from Canterbury, from Limerick, from Inveralakey, from Balky and from Aberdeen and all the country round. We're a water got the hair and we're a water Yarmouth town. Rise up in the morning with your bundles in your hands, be at the station early, you surely hate to stand. Make penny party and a kettle for your tea, or you maybe tie your hunger on the way to Yarmouth Quay. Well, the journey, it's a long one, and it takes a day or two. When you reach your lodge, and sure it's sound asleep you fall, but you rise up in the morning with the sleep all in your ear, and you're off to find the gutting yards along the Yarmouth Quay. Well, it's early in the morning, it's late into the night. Your hands are caught and chubby and you're looking awful sight. You weep like a wean when you put 'em in the bree. You wish you were 1,000 miles away from Yarmouth Quay. There's cutters and there's gears, there's bayous, canny shears, lasses at the Brooklyn and there's others at the Creel. You wish that the fish had all been left out in the sea by the time you finish cutting there and on the Yarmouth Quay. Come all you fisher lassies, it's come a war with me, from Canterbury, from Gimbry and from Inveralakey, from Balky and from Aberdeen and all the country round. Where the water got the hair and where the water Yarmouth town. It feels so comfortable. It feels almost like home. We play all over the world, and we play in big theaters and festivals, and I mean, I love them all, but there's something about the Palms that really makes me feel like I'm in my own living room. And I think because of that, we can get relaxed, we can have fun, we can goof around, and our audience sort of expects it. And I also really think of Linda. Linda put this all together all those years ago, and we miss her. She's out in Florida. Hi, Linda. We love your Palms so much. We love what you created, and we're going to keep it going.
One of the things that was always great about the Palms, first of all, the sound was always really good there. They've always had good sound people. Also, the volunteers and the folks that ran the bar and the refreshments and stuff were always a lot of fun, and just made people feel welcome. I mean, there's a reason that at least legend has it, Richard Thompson once said that it was his favorite place to play in North America, and he's played enough places that, that really means something.
It was the idea, I think, for a lot of people, because of that informal atmosphere, to get a sense of what a house concert feels like. It was a playhouse. It was a home. It wasn't a club. And it really wasn't a theater, even though it could stretch the idea of a theater. But theater's too fancy. I think Playhouse was just right. Just right.
I can say I was sad to see the Palms leave Davis. I think that it was so unique to have this unassuming barn that was a terrific music hall, and the musicians who came to play there loved it, and they came back year after year because they couldn't get that kind of intimate experience anyplace else, because there were no more than 20 feet or 25 feet from the stage and the musicians to the worst seat in the house.
Well, here we are just outside the Palms, and that's the Palms. That's the front door right over there. Pretty unassuming. Some people first time here don't even really quite know where to go when they come here, but they eventually learn. And here, this tractor, this has been here, first came here on the property about 1963. It's a 1949 International Cub. A lot of people love the front doors, the weathered look, and in we go. There's the Palms. Here's the bar area right here, and a lot of photographs are on the wall of the performers who've played here over the years. It's just a small proportion of the performers. A lot of them have been taken by Paul Lucier. Here's Taj Mahal. He was, as far as the Palms, he was definitely obviously a favorite, and he played here pretty often, and was a big favorite of Linda and everybody here, actually. There's Peter Rowan, and Peter Rowan is slightly older. It's our old dog, also named Taj Mahal. A lot of people remember Taj. It's a picture of him with a broken left leg, but he was great. Black Lab Chow mix, and we loved him a lot. Could be seen at all the Palms performances, lying down right in the way of everybody, right here on the floor. Leo Kottke right here. He played here a number of times. Last time was about 4 years ago, but obviously one of the world's great acoustic guitarists. And up here is jazz player Mose Allison. Elvin Bishop, Big Daddy Ray. Bluesman Tinsley Ellis, and this is actor Harry Dean Stanton, who played here a couple of times. That was a really fun show. He sings and does Tex-Mex, some songs in Spanish. The great Townes Van Zandt, folk country singer-songwriter, big influence on a lot of people. Dave Van Ronk. Honey Boy Edwards, it's hard to see here, but Honey Boy Edwards, he was the last person to play with Robert Johnson. Great blues man. There's the Bobs, Jimmy Dale Gilmore, Roy Rogers, Norton Buffalo. Queen Ida, second over from the left. Roy Anson Funderburg. This little picture is legendary bluesman Robert Jr. Lockwood. John Hammond, Billy Joe Shaver and his son Eddie Shaver, who passed away also last year. Chris Smither, Joe Louis Walker, Charlie Musselwhite. And that's hard to see. Taj Mahal back there. Commander Cody. A lot of great people. There's the theater. It seats about 150 people. We've got, you'll notice, at maximum 6 rows here in the center, and there's 2 elevated rows, which are sort of the coveted seats. If you can't be in the very front row, these are the coveted seats right here. There's 24 of those. They're more comfortable than these. The sound is great there. Sounds great anywhere, but it's certainly better there. You notice the chairs, it's pretty, they used to just be, where are these wood chairs? Let me show you. We used to just sit, we used to have the whole theater just in these chairs. Very uncomfortable. And a lot of people fondly, sort of a love-hate relationship with them, fondly remember them as the chairs that were from the earliest times, earliest days here at the Palms. And as we've grown older and wider, we have learned to love these less and less, but we still have a few left, so put that away. And now it's to mix and match. A mix and match, a bunch of chairs and some stools in the back. Back here in the corner, we have the soundboard, the wood. And it came from an old barn, and figured out how to make this into the playhouse. Just the fact that it's got structure, but it's not way too organized, and that's kind of the nature of what makes this place work in general. And that would go from the performers who play, to the way the seats are, to the audience that shows up, to the people who work here. I think that's a magic formula. I think what makes this room acoustically magic is it's a combination of things. One, it's the talented people who do sound out here. They've told me it's actually not that easy a room to do. It's got quirks. But once they've got that dialed in, obviously it's the softness of the room. It's the open wood. The ceilings aren't, it's 18 feet to the top, but it's only about 12 to the sides. And another thing that is kind of unusual about this building, the fact that this room is so porous, and if you can point the camera out towards the door, you can see light coming through. And the fact that you can see light coming through all sorts of places. A lot of the energy of sound just escapes out the room, and it doesn't turn into, not to get too technical about it, but it doesn't create so-called standing waves that make sound horrible. Just the fact that it is funky, and the fact that it is not a perfectly sealed building is helpful. And you have funny elements to it that are kind of amusing. Like this trap door. And you come out like that, and you surprise the audience. It's kind of fun. An element that's really been a great element to this place has just been the stage, which is really only 8 inches tall. I think we added one layer of of plywood. I think it's 16 feet wide and about 15 feet deep in an octagonal shape. I don't know, just the way the audience wraps around a performer up here is. It's an element a lot of clubs do it now, and a lot of stages try to create intimacy with this sort of design now. And it's just makes the audience feel part of it, and makes the performer feel part of the audience, and that's an important aspect of things. Makes them relax, everyone relaxes, and they can have a better time. This is the backstage, and over the years, not even most, but I mean just some of the performers have signed the wall. And you'll find this in a lot of clubs backstage where they sign, and it's always pretty neat. And if you're able to pan around, went through this last night and tried to find, just found as many performers as I could. Some have signed real small, some not. But we've got Coco Taylor. That's the one everybody can see from the audience. Great blues singer, and been around Chicago forever. And she played here. It was a great night. Some highlights, Beau Soleil up there. This drawing by Mark Wenner of the Nighthawks, really great. Harley Davidson. Albert Collins and the Icebreakers. Albert Collins played here March 7, 1990. That was a terrific evening. And Norton Buffalo, he's played here many times over the years. Queen Ida, one of the many, many times. Certainly one of our favorite people who's ever played here. And then it's just a lot of interesting things. A lot of people do drawings. A group called the Mollies do this little drawing of their band, and there's Mumbo Gumbo. He's signing that. And above that's the Battlefield Band's Scottish group. Self-portraits. Sourdough Slim and the Saddle Pals with their great cactus up there. And I've always loved this. This was Mike Aldridge of the just legendary bluegrass group, The Seldom Seen. Mike Aldridge drew this dobro, and the group signed it around there too. We hope to be able to preserve the walls. I was talking with somebody yesterday, someone in construction, and he says, well, it might be a little difficult to do it without breaking it, because it is on sheetrock. We'll see how we do it. We may have to remove the outer tin and then work at it from that direction. But these walls are easy to do. It's just particle board, and unscrew that. That'll be simple. But we do hope to preserve the walls, and what we can preserve, mount them, display them somewhere. No miss. There's a lot of little things, of course. I mean, the ability of the front row to put their feet on the stage as they're watching the show, and it's just a funny sight. There's just such a unique familiarity and casualness and ease here that people talk about all the time. And it's just the fun that comes from that. The ability, I'll miss the ability of just heading outside real easily if you need to head outside, and then you come back in when you need to. Obviously I miss the unique intimacy that is here, but just that neat combination of world-class performers in such a small and casual surrounding is just a really difficult thing to find these days, and we'll miss that. Would you please welcome great singer-songwriter on the East Coast, and welcome her to the Palms one last time, Lucy Koplansky.
Secret time you're coming to the world, you're open like a book and the pages get filled. Leaves keep turning on every single page. They write their story with marks on your face, marks on your face. Locked in your head, an unbreakable code. A secret never spoken, it's a story never told. I'll show you the back of my hand, they say. You can hide those scars, but they hurt you every day, hurt you every day. They hurt you every day. What was written on the back of his hand, you want to said it out loud, he will say it again. It was written on the back of his hand, you want to said it out loud, he will say it again. It was written on the back of his hand, you won't say it again.
So I guess I've played at the Palms 5 times or so, and I've always played with Nina Gerber here. And this is just really one of my favorite places to play. I remember the first time I came here, I was a little shocked to see, that night I remember on stage I called it a shack, because that's kind of what it is. But it is one of the most fun places I've ever played, and that's actually the truth. There's just a vibe in this place that is so unusual and so much fun, and it's partly because of Dave, who's a great guy and loves the music. It's partly because of the audience, who are really sort of raucous. But I just always have a great time here, and I was very sad to hear it wasn't going to be here, and I was very honored to hear that I was going to be one of the last shows here.
What was written on the back of his hand, he once said it out loud, he will say it again. It was written on the back of his hand, he once said it out loud, he will say it again. It was written on the back of his hand, you won't say it again. When true words gonna beat a bag of lies. When true words gonna beat a bag of lies.
I never got the impression, at least not early on in the late 70s and early 80s, that KDVS, the radio station here at the University in Davis, was paying all that much attention to what the Palms was up to. The vibes weren't quite right. I know that there were a few DJs at KDVS who certainly were paying attention to what the Palms was doing, but the station in and of itself, nah, not so much. That came later. But up in Grass Valley, their station, KVMR, they were really paying attention to what the Palms was doing, and the synergy was perfect. The music that you would hear on KVMR felt like what you would get when you went to see a show at the Palms. And there was no question that the staff at KVMR was paying very close attention to the acts that were coming into the Palms, because you'd hear the same music on the station, and the artists who would appear at the Palms would pop up either before the performance or after the performance at the station, and you'd get this nice echo effect of the entertainment that you'd been getting. They must have been having a very good time at KVMR with what the Palms was doing, and I'm sure, looking back, that Linda McDonough, who was running the Palms, must have wished for that kind of attention from our own radio station here in town.
I've been doing radio here in KVMR on Saturday afternoons for about the last 10 plus years, and I started doing some shows down at the Palms, recording some live shows down there on the airwaves. The last couple of years been doing some projects. It's been a nice fun ride. I don't even know when I started going to the Palms. What I do know is from up here in Nevada City, Grass Valley, it takes about an hour and 20 minutes, so we have to pay our dues to get down there and see some of those shows. I moved up here in Northern California in '87, and again, I'm not quite sure when I discovered the Palms, but I would suspect it would have been within the first year or two, because I have a tendency to nose those things out and find out where some good music venues are. Maybe in the last 20-some years of my life, I've spent a lot of time seeing live music at lots of different venues around California, and of all of them, I'd have to put the Palms up there as maybe the premier one, where everything just seems to come together. I know Robert Earl Keen recently, when he found out they were closing, he made an effort and had his agent contact the folks at the Palms, that he had to play one more round there before it did shut down, and I made a point of talking to him during the breaks and kind of picked his brain about what the Palms really did mean to him and how important it was to him, and he certainly said that there was just no place like it, and with all the places that he plays around the country and everything, he had just never seen any venue that had been quite as charming and brought it all together as much as that little place in Davis has had the capability of doing.
I want to welcome you to the Palms Playhouse here in Davis. Tonight we got the great acoustic duo, Trout Fishing in America, one of our favorites. I want to let you know this is being broadcast live on KVMR Radio, 89.5 FM in Nevada City. It's part of the KVMR On the Road Live series that they've been doing, live shows from various venues in the Sacramento or Northern California region, and we've done a few here at the Palms already, and we are glad they're back with us again this evening. Tonight we have, as I say, really absolutely stellar musicians, real fun performers, and we welcome them back to the Palms. Please welcome Trout Fishing in America.
Yeah, well, we made all the hot spots. My money flowed like wine. I ain't in the golden, the Southern whiskey began to plow to my mind. And I don't remember church bells, but all the money I laid down out on the white picket fence and boardwalk on the house at Fairtown. Yeah, boy, do I remember the strain of her refrain and the nights we spent together and the way she called my name. Yeah, if you be my Dixie chicken, I'll be your Tennessee lamb. We can walk together down in Dixieland, down in Dixieland. La, 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 la.
Land use change across California, and certainly here in the Central Valley, is usually associated with converting agricultural land into suburban houses. And that's certainly what happened here in the case of the Palms Playhouse in Davis. And we affiliate that sometimes with the idea that we're trading on our agricultural heritage as a state for housing and for more of an urban life. But what I want to stress here is the degree to which land use changes change the culture of a town. And in the Palms, we had a fantastic music venue bringing low-cost culture from around the United States, really around the world, into a small town, Davis, California, a great university town, and it affected our culture.
It became obvious, this is Davis. That was prime real estate. And I think that the Palms had 2.5 acres. I may have that wrong, but it was a nice plot of land. And they did start getting complaints about noise from neighbors, particularly when some of the louder bands were playing there. And there were some loud bands there. Dave Alvin, for example, great band, could get loud. And neighbors started complaining. And then Linda had come to Davis a number of years ago with her husband. He was a graduate student, and they bought that piece of land. And she was the owner at the time, at the end. And ultimately, she had left Davis and moved back east, and ultimately decided that she wanted to sell the property. And whether or not there was any pressure on her to do that from the city, I can't say, but it was a prime piece of real estate out there. And so when it became obvious that all that was going to happen, Dave Fleming was running the Palms at that time, and he started looking for another place to put the Palms. And he looked in Davis first. He was interested in staying in Davis, and large numbers of people went down to the city council meetings and tried to get the city council to work on finding a place to put the Palms. But my impression is that the city council didn't really seem to have any interest. They didn't wish to be involved in it.
There was a sense that the Davis City Council would step in and move the Palms to one of the vacant buildings, which was the old City Hall was one, and the Varsity Theater, which had some use but not full-time use. I think the story that you'll hear is we didn't have the money for the renovations. I don't believe that to be true. I think had the desire been there, the money would have quickly followed because there was enough community support. What really crushed the Palms in the end was Mondavi Center. The City Council had their world-class music venue coming in. I think that feeling, that energy, that spirit really left, and those in power and those with decision-making powers could not grasp onto that feeling the way those of us who loved that barn could. And so Davis lost its Palms as a result. I think the Palms leaving Davis, some in your movie will probably say it was time to move on, the land was sold. We could never have captured that spirit. There's no other venue because this was this organic accident that was the Palms. You could never consciously recreate an organic accident. That may have been true, but what I would say to the folks in Davis was, you not only lost a venue, you lost an opportunity. You lost a real opportunity to at least try to recreate a feeling that moves so many people and that will move so many more in generations to come.
Well, the Palms,
the passing of the Palms.
The passing of the Palms.
Is there a question?
No.
How do you feel about the passing of the Palms?
You know, I've been in denial about it since it all started to become clear that it was actual reality.
When was the first time you played here?
I've been playing here for 20 years.
Woo!
This band's been playing here
like
for a long time.
I was like 5 when I started.
Well, Gumbo, actually, we changed our name here at the Palms from the old band, the Spidells. The Spidells played here, and then Gumbo's played here every year at Picnic Day for 12 years, since 1990. That was the day
It was Gumbo's debutante party.
Gumbo's, yeah, that's right.
We came out as
Wow!
Yeah, on Picnic Day 1990, and then ever since then we played every Picnic Day and
every after Thanksgiving,
every
right?
Thanksgiving weekend, yeah. So it's
amazing.
It's home sweet home right here at the Palms.
This is too sad to do really before we're about to play our last show, which is going to be a big party and a festive feeling. I can't even think about it. It's really too sad.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's not going to be here, you know.
I can't believe it's going to be condos.
Yeah.
Because we need more of those. I guess we do. I mean,
I guess we do.
You know, I guess you got to live somewhere.
If I was rich, I would have bought this area. I would have bought the real estate to keep the Palms going. I've been coming out here ever since it began, which is what, about 25 years ago. And of course, I'm such a Mumbo Gumbo fan that every time Mumbo Gumbo plays, my wife and I have come and enjoyed. But I've been here for many other times. I'm just so sad, and I'm hoping that things will go well for Dave and the folks that have done a wonderful job out here. And again, if I had been a millionaire, my sense was that I would have said, hey, I'll buy that and we'll keep it going.
The last show itself is just going to be one for the memory banks. I'm really looking forward to it. A favorite son of KVMR's, Utah Phillips, who does a weekly show here on KVMR on Sundays called Loafer's Glory. Well, he was the very first musical act to play there, and it's going to be ending up full circle, where the final closing show coming up, of course, on August 24th is going to feature Utah Phillips closing it. And there's just a real excitement as to how this is going to unfold, and it's taken a life of its own with people wanting to do this or that there. I'm going to be committed to doing my afternoon show there that afternoon just so I can be as close as possible in the remaining hours. I've almost been convincing myself that I can hear a clock ticking in the background as the final note is going to be played there, and it's going to just be building up to one heck of a crescendo, and we're proud that KVMR is going to be poised there to bring the final note as it unfolds that night, and it's going to be a very powerful and emotional cultural moment for the region.
Talked about like bomber missions over. Now he realized he really did think he was.
Sorry,
Homeland Security. I want to
Yeah. That's Homeland Security.
I feel very fortunate to have been a part of the Palms all these years. I got to really cut my teeth and play a lot of good original music here in the early days, and was honored to be the first actual opening act here. Utah Phillips and I were on tour in '76 and sharing concerts. And I believe the Davis Pickers and Singers had finally overflowed their living room and decided to have us over here, which is how the music thing started. And it's been a great run. Awfully sorry to see the old barn closing. And I guess we're all keeping our fingers crossed that this venue will open up somewhere else and that everybody will keep coming and enjoying the good tunes and the high spirits.
This is quintessentially California. This is the real California. And you can't explain this to somebody from the Midwest. You can't explain it to somebody from New England, you know. This is a warm, comfortable, loose, easy, familial place. The Palms is its people, and the people aren't going away. So the Palms will be moving down to over the winters, and the kind of spirit that has grown here will grow there because the Palms is the people. It's not just a place to play.
Yeah, this is a song that I made up, gave to a birthday present to an old rancher named Bodie, remembers him from the World's Fair, Ralph Hahn Sr. from Troy, Montana. And I'd sometimes spend part of the winter in his Hahn's hotel. He got too old to run the ranch, so we took over the old little hotel in town. And he's the one who told me the first stories I ever heard about Charlie Goodnight and Oliver Loving. And it's not a cowboy song. It's song about getting old and having your work that you were born to run out on you. These old cowboys, they get so busted up inside they couldn't sit a horse properly, so they get set off on the chuck gang and have to handle the bedrolls and do the cooking and doctor the chilblains and saddle sores with the old Indian cures. Mostly they got left behind when everybody went into town to hoorah, and they had to stay behind to boil up the coffee to sober them up for another day's work, which is a real rude letdown for somebody who had led a rough and a vigorous life. Too old to wrangle or ride on the swing. You beat the triangle and curse everything. If dirt was a kingdom, then you'd be the king. On the goodnight trail, on the loving trail. Our old woman's lonesome tonight. Your French harp blows like a lone bawling calf. It's a wonder the wind don't tear off your skin and get in there and blow out the light. With your snake oil and herbs and your liniment too, you can do anything that a doctor can do, except find a cure for your own goddamn stew. On the goodnight trail, on the loving trail, our old woman's lonesome tonight. Your French harp blows like a lone bawling calf. It's a wonder the wind don't tear off your skin and get in there and blow out the light. The cook fire's out and the coffee's all gone. The boys are up and they're raising the dawn. You're still sitting there all lost in a song. On the goodnight trail, on the loving trail, our old woman's lonesome tonight. Your French harp blows like a lone bawling calf. It's a wonder the wind don't tear off your skin and get in there and blow out the light. I know that someday I'll be just the same, wearing an apron instead of a name, and no one can change it and no one's to blame. The desert's a book wrote in lizards and sage. It's easy to look like an old torn out page, faded and cracked with the colors of age. On the goodnight trail, on the loving trail, our old woman's lonesome tonight. Your French harp blows like a lone bawling calf. It's a wonder the wind don't tear off your skin and get in there and blow out the light.
This old barn on the edge of town, out in the country, did you hear that sound? The kind of place where you feel at home, see a friendly face, hear a favorite song. 25 years we danced and sang, dodged mud puddles in the parking lot when it rained. From anywhere around the world, we heard it all. Yeah, this old barn was the rockin', this old barn knew the blues. Feel that soul every time you go, dance all night to the Zydeco. This old barn, love country, a home for troubadour shoes. Lift us high and never say goodbye, old barn, sure gonna miss you. Sacred ground, the music lives on. memory. This old barn was a rockin', this old barn knew the blues. Feel that soul every time you go. Dance all night to the Zydeco. This old barn, love the country, a home for troubadour shoes. Lift us high, never say goodbye, oh barn, sure gonna miss you. Lift us high, never say goodbye, oh barn, sure gonna miss you. Lift us high, never say goodbye, oh barn, sure gone.